of the 5th edition. Join our various gaming groups as we play the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. And maybe just hang out and chat about gaming in general. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, assigned to Ragnarok Story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and RPGpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Hey guys, Jim here.
And Kelly.
And today's a weird topic. It's kind of an extension of yesterday's, but it's the Day 9 favorite planned PC.
Well, I would go with my Sister Solace, my tiefling cleric. When we were deciding, okay, somebody has to be the healer, and nobody wanted to be the healer, so I decided to. And I wanted to make the most unhealer looking character as possible, so she looks like a devil. But she's of like a, the god of light, and healing. So, but I actually built this whole backstory for her, and I went ahead and I have this sheet of just different types of, one of her background things was that she's always, talking about, her mentor, so I actually came up with a whole list of different, situations that had occurred, so that she could use them in reference, for inspiration and stuff. Mm-hmm. And, also I came up with a whole list of different, what would a cleric of, if she came across undead, because of course Pelor's big thing is, killing undead. It's like, well, what would she say, or how would she, so I came up with all these different, sayings and anecdotes for this character, and she never really got to go into her backstory too, because I created this backstory that Jim could use that you could use in a future setting.
So much
none of
fodder.
The other characters knew what it was,
Uh-huh.
and it left so I feel, and I would love to get back to this character because it's like, so much stuff she could do. But yeah, I would have to say she's my favorite, player one, the planned one.
Planned out character, yeah.
Although I do have one that I have yet to, my next planned one, I would like to do is a fire genasi half-orc monk, because I've never played any of those, whose preferred weapon is a frying pan, and she loves to cook, make a background of chef or something, and create it, and her name would be Ambrosia.
And that would be an awesome character.
Yeah, so I'm working on that one. May not have a game for it to drop into yet or anything, but I'm working on it.
See, now for my favorite planned PC, this goes back to the as you get the Wayback Machine wobble of flashbacks, as it takes me back to the days of 3.0, back when you got feats every couple levels. But to get to some of the really powerful feats, you had prerequisites that you had to meet to get to. So of course, that's what totally Pathfinder does too, is the same thing, is that you had to look at yourself and basically reverse engineer your character to get to the place you wanted. And I ended up making a monk who I just called Woo, because, Woo, Woo totally works.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole plan for him was when they first came out with the very powerful monk, technically anyone could do it, spike chain build for 3.0. Where not only did spike chains give you a great set of paired weapons if you wanted a paired weapon fight, but they had reach and knockdown. And there was this really nasty feat called rapid reaction that gave you attacks of opportunity equal to your dex modifier. And what is more ridiculous than a monk who threatens 10-foot square instead of 5-foot square and has 3 to 4 attacks of opportunity with a weapon that can trip?
Okay.
So basically this guy's whole job was to basically find any hallway that had 3 squares or 4 squares and would basically lock down that hallway, Twice in one of my games, he managed to save an entire party wipe from everyone got to run or drag off teammates as I just stood there tripping and knocking people down just out of attacking me range. Because basically this cool monk did the cool monk thing of owning that hallway and no one could pass. And of course, that was back in 3.0 when if you had somebody in the way, you had to have an opening to get around them. You couldn't just walk through a friendly target square. So if I could knock down enough people to fill up the squares, they could not pass.
Yeah.
And it was just it was a bizarre character because he was literally a one-shot pony. He was all about this chain weapon and the monk abilities. I could have totally, geared him out for some extra stuff, but nope. He was all about acrobatics because, of course, back in 3.0, you could roll acrobatics to avoid giving an attack of opportunity. So he could use that, and then he had multiple attacks and multiple attacks of opportunity. So, in fact, he could sacrifice his action to then just be a beast with those chains tripping people as attacks of opportunity. That was one of his things where he would do the tumble trick, the tumble skill, and tumble in past bad guys that would have caused attacks of opportunity. Then he just stands there and starts whipping people with his chain in the feet and knocking them down. It was ridiculous character, it really was. I mean, a build like that would be even more ridiculous nowadays. I mean, there's a reason why
they don't have feats like that, so it's going to be a little.
True, but they're starting to bring some of those feats back. I'm just saying. I mean, they're never going to bring rapid reaction back because that was just a ridiculous feat that rewarded anyone with high dex, and it became that dex was the uber attribute at that point because rapid reaction allowed rogues, rangers, fighters, and monks, if they had good dex, to just destroy things as not their action, which was ridiculous. I mean, not so bad with some of the regular classes like rogues who could do 1d6 and some damage because they already burned their, uber sneak attack. But when you have a paired set of weapons that does trip, that becomes obnoxious. Which is why I think they kind of haven't really brought spiked chain back as a weapon. I know in our Heroes and Gods game, our monk character totally wanted the spiked chain as his monk weapon. So
but he couldn't have it?
I totally gave it to him because I have a soft spot for that weapon. And in that game, he only comes every so often, so it's not like it would destroy the mighty Minotaur coming after the group and he'd just spike chain the guy to death. Because there's nothing like hitting a guy with a reach weapon, knocking him prone, and then walking away. Because that was the one nice thing, back in that edition of D&D, how getting up didn't take half your movement. It took all your movement. So if somebody knocked you on your butt, you were down for chasing. So Wu was my favorite planned character because he was literally just meant to do that cool combination.
Cool.
Alrighty. Anything else you got there for your character? Because she was an awesome character.
No, I mean, eventually I'd like to get back to her.
I've got a good one for you. Any advice for players on making a planned character?
Well, I mean, it depends. First of all, I created her because I had to fill the need. We needed a healer.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what prompted her creation, because I'm like, okay, fine. If I have to make a healer, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it, different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, but some people it's like, I just want, and the reason why I saw a picture of a half-orc fire genasi that was so cool looking. And I'm like, you know what? I love the movie Tangled, frying pans. Who knew? But then you see in all these other movies where they use frying pans as a weapon, and it's like, come on. So, and that leads to, then I could do the background of the chef, So sometimes maybe find one thing that like, sort of as an inspiration, like one detail that you'd like to incorporate, and then try and build off of that.
Mm-hmm. Find that gold nugget that makes the character.
Yeah.
See, as a GM, I will totally throw out there for planned PC, much like with Sister Solace, is talk to your GM. Let your GM know this is what you want, and sit down and see if the two of you can hash out what the build is, because a lot of times, players have an idea, but they don't really communicate it with the GM, so it doesn't really come to its full blossom, But if you tell your GM this is what you want, and of course remind your GM, because a lot of times after months and months of gameplay, it could be forgotten that you wanted to do this thing. And if you can have a pre-planned PC, like sometimes I've known players that wanted to pre-plan the character's demise. They had a specific goal that when they got to that, it was okay for the character to die.
Yeah, no, I mean, I loved Sister Solace, but there was this one part where, I mean, she almost died. It was literally, I mean, fortunately there was a Hail Mary, type of thing, but it would have been sad to lose her, but it would have been fine because she'd be going out the right way, type of thing. Sacrificing herself for one of her fellows.
So it would have been a good story.
It would have been a good death.
Mm-hmm.
But fortunately, one of our other players pulled out a natural 20 and
pulled a Hail Mary and filled her full of grace.
Yeah, and it was like, woohoo! So she lived. But if she had died, it would have been okay. I mean, it would have been sad. I'd had rolled up a new character. But she would have gone out on her terms, and the way, if she's going to go out, that's the way she would have wanted it. And that would be to protect one of her teammates.
Mm-hmm. So don't be afraid to communicate with your planned PC, with your GM and your group.
Oh, but don't be too inflexible either.
True.
Because I remember helping somebody create a character once, and they had this vision of this character in their head, but I'm like, okay, I suggest this. No, I don't want that. She wouldn't do that. But then when they got into combat, they're like, they have nothing for combat.
They realized they should have listened to your suggestions.
It's like, no, I recommend that you take this spell at least, and because that way you always have one thing that's offensive.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, they're like, I can't do it. It's like, well, we're in combat and what are you
You're not
going to
able
do?
to play
And
your character.
exactly. It's like, well, it's because they were inflexible about, they had that idea in their head of how this character would be.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't quite fit with what was happening. Or like have a healer with no healing spells.
Mm-hmm.
What?
You need to be careful on pre-planning, but still communicating with your player group.
Exactly. That's why I also, as if I'm playing a caster and we're building a specific campaign, it's like I will find out. I will ask the other casters, or people with them. It's like, well, which cantrips are you taking?
Mm-hmm.
Because that way I don't overlap. Oh, well, so-and-so has light. So does so-and-so. I don't need light. I mean, it's a cantrip. We can use it. I mean, Sister Solace, who didn't need it, but as it was part of her domain. She gets it for free,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. But it's like she used it to,
Mm-hmm.
to good advantage.
Yep. So don't be afraid of making don't be afraid to make pre-planned characters and communicate with everybody around you of what the expectation of the player is.
But don't be completely inflexible in your vision.
Because let's be honest, as you play, characters change and they take a voice of their own, just like a written character.
Yeah.
So sometimes your character can totally say, "Screw your plan, I'm doing my thing."
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you for coming along this crazy day's adventure. That was totally only slightly planned. And have a great evening.
Thank you for listening to D&D Journey of the 5th Edition, a member of the Creative Play and Podcast Network. Please follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/CPPN to never miss a show or stream.